do an activity to prepare for Gatsby's funeral. And then we are actually going to throw Gatsby the funeral that he deserves. I've got some Martinellis for toasts. I've got a PowerPoint presentation prepared with images. Well, it'll be a good time. But to get there, we kind of need to discuss kind of what makes Gatsby so great in the first place, or it's like, why are we throwing this guy's funeral? All right.
I don't think actually, no, I don't think so.
What?
Yeah, it's like based on a real story.
No.
What'd you say?
That doesn't send us something, just be like, yeah, maybe he is
Okay. All right, so let's go. Take out your books. Yeah, Gatsby. I've got some Gatsby's on the back table if you left it.
Nope, I have it.
Good job.
And we have been talking a lot about the way that our narrator and the society he is a part of judges people in the society, right? Based on wealth and based on status. So we've been talking a lot about the way that Mr. Wilson is portrayed in relation to Gatsby, in relation to Daisy. We've been talking about what that reveals about whether or not we actually do value hard work. We've also been talking a little bit about what that reveals about like being an American. Like if the American dream is about you work hard and then you achieve success, then what does it mean that we look down on people who work hard and they don't necessarily achieve success in the same way as people who work less hard or something like that? Yeah, Sam. Yeah. Okay, so this is the worst cover, which is why I'm very excited that it's in the public domain now, because there's a million amazing covers. But this was like, it has always been the cover. I think since like since the 40s, since they came back for more and reissued this. Not that that matters. It's Daisy. It's kind of jazz age stuff. It's like Daisy looking out kind of the way that Eckelberg's eyes do in the Valley of Ashes, when it talks about how like those are the eyes of God. They kind of like are above the city that way. So I think that's part of it. And then if you look carefully inside the eyes, there's naughty pictures, which I just like to point that stuff out. Yeah. I like to point that out because, you know, I just love getting, you know, parents coming and talking to me about things. That's just my favorite thing. So I don't know why I do, but this has been the cover. Yeah, you can't see it. This has been the cover forever. And people don't love this cover. There's a lot of hatred for this cover.
It's such an ugly cover.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't really.
Like where the random
It makes you think, why
See
did
the
Gatsby die?
Here's what I like. Yeah, I like the kind of like frenetic pace of the city. Like I like that it seems like frenetic is like kind of like, it's like fast but kind of like chaotic. I like that the lights are like blurred, like it's a movement of the car.
I just don't get the face.
But the face is, yeah, Daisy kind of like hovering over everything, you know.
I hate Daisy.
What's his name? Yeah.
So- I don't know. So let's talk about Daisy then. If we don't like Daisy so much. Now, I never know whether to be kind to Daisy or not. In some ways, I want to be kind to Daisy because Daisy grew up in an atmosphere where the top achievement that Daisy could have is marrying well, right? As part of like the upper class. I mean, it goes with like every Jane Austen book and every kind of book starting, you know, of the 1800s. A rich girl, the one thing that she can do is marry a rich guy. And then that is the epitome of success. She has done her job, right? And if she has kids, that's even better. But like what's most important is that you've made a good match, you know? And so in some ways I look at Daisy and I'm like, she did what was expected of her. Why should Daisy have to fight against the system that built her to be this way, you know? Like when everybody else seems to go with it. At the same time, she's so phony. The way that she kind of like strings people along, I hate that. But then I also hate that Gatsby thinks that she can't love anybody else. Like he thinks that in order to like have somebody's love, you have to have that whole entire person. You basically have to own that person. And that bothers me too. So maybe the answer is just that like no one is excused in this book.
But
Yeah.
Gatsby died loving her.
Yeah,
And died defending her.
right.
He's like, I didn't hit him, but you know what? I'm gonna say that I hit him. Why?
Yeah,
Like,
and
what-
thinking
why-
that
what
she's gonna
makes this
call
book
him.
So worth it?
Okay, let's ask ourselves that. We haven't, I can't go too far down that pattern, or down that line, but I do want to go to that part now that you've asked it. Go to 149. All right, actually 148. Thank you. Let's see who's close here. Yeah. What is this PCCR? That's what everyone's getting told for.
What are you gonna do with your life?
Oh, well, have
Are we
fun
all gonna
planning the rest of your life, Tate.
What do you prefer?
I don't think so. I want to hear more about that later. Okay, so page 148, this is where we actually hear what he likes so much about Daisy, and we can think of Gatsby in a generous way and say he really loves her, or we can think of him in a not generous way. And I put this on some of your responses. I don't know if you've seen, I've been commenting on your responses. And the way to look at it generously is he did everything for Daisy. He didn't really care about the money, and he was just building up this wealth because that was the way to get Daisy, right? And the more nasty way of looking at it is that he doesn't really care about Daisy. What he cares about is her wealth, and that he built up all this wealth, and then he wants to kind of have all of it. He wants to have the status too, and so he needs the woman, he needs the wife, right? And let's think about what it is here. It says she was the first nice girl he had ever known. In various unrevealed capacities, he had come in contact with such people, but always with indiscernible barbed wire between. He found her excitingly desirable. He went to her house at first with other officers from Camp Taylor, then alone. It amazed him. He had never been in such a beautiful house before. But what gave it an air of breathless intensity was that Daisy lived there. It was as casual a thing to her as his tent out at camp was to him. There was a ripe mystery about it, a hint of bedrooms, upstairs more beautiful and cool than other bedrooms, of gay and radiant activities taking place through its corridors, and of romances that were not musty and laid away already in lavender, but fresh and breathing and redolent of this year's shining motor cars, and of dances whose flowers were scarcely withered. It excited him too that many men had already loved Daisy. It increased her value in his eyes. He felt their presence all about the house, pervading the air with the shades and echoes of still vibrant emotions. So what do we think there about his, like, at least his first attraction to Daisy? Like, why does he like Daisy so much? What's so great about her?
Well, he liked her at first when she was nice. And then he just saw all the added benefits.
Okay, good. So it's like she's a nice girl and I like that. And also now that I'm in her house, I really like this house. That type of.
Instead, I don't think he would marry her just because of that. Because, again, he died saying that he was going to, like, ruin his life for her.
Yeah, good.
So, like, that means, like, he didn't act, like, he couldn't care about the money that much if he was willing to give everything he had up for her.
Awesome. So like, and so it's like comparing then the end of their relationship maybe to the beginning of their relationship. Maybe
It could've
he's
started
changed.
out shallow.
Yeah, good. So if it started out shallow, tell me about this term, and then I'll get to Nathan here. Tell me about this term, nice. Why is it in quotation marks?
Well, nice means so many different things.
Yeah, yeah. Christian?
It almost sounds like she was the first girl who really looked at him.
Okay, good. So it's like she gave me attention. So I'm gonna call her nice.
It almost sounds more like physical attention. That's why it's in quotation marks.
Ah, okay. So she's like nice in a certain kind of way, right? I think her niceness is all wrapped up in the house itself. I haven't gotten in contact with a nice girl because I've always had barbed wire between me and nice people. And so I think nice here is about her class, but because of her class and the expectations on her class, I think nice is also about like proper. Like she's not the type of girl that he could just get to go out with him really easily. He's got to work really hard for it, and he's got to obey certain rules. I think that's the kind of nice he's talking about here. And then he goes through her house, and he's just like, this house is amazing. It's even more amazing that it's like casual that she lives here. Nathan, what were you gonna say before?
I was just saying that same thing where it's like, it almost seems like part of what he likes about her is that it's like a challenge. Like she's inaccessible, and that makes it that makes him more attracted to her.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get that later when it's like lots of men have already loved Daisy and it increased his value in his eyes. Why would lots of men liking your girlfriend increase the value in your eyes? Like that's kind of the opposite of usually what people say. Yeah, Luke. It's kind of like a trophy wife. Yeah, it's like this person represents that my status. And by having her on my arm, I show that I'm worth something because she's obviously worth something to lots of people. Yeah, Tate.
I mean, this gonna sound weird, but it's kind of like a pair of shoes, like they're really rare, like when you have them, and it's no reflex, like you just have like a pair of Vans.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome analogy. Actually, she is like a pair of shoes. So that line right there kind of feels like objectification in an icky way. So there's this kind of shallowness at the beginning of their relationship and this kind of objectification. He says, later on it says, go to this paragraph, but he didn't despise himself. But he didn't despise himself, and it didn't turn out as he had imagined. He had intended, probably, to take what he could and go. But now he found that he had committed himself to the following of a grail. Okay, tell me about that. Why call her a grail?
Probably referring to someone to the Holy Grail.
It is, definitely, yeah.
And the line is unattainable.
Good. So it means that it's like special the way the shoes are special, right? It's unattainable the way that Nathan was saying, like you have to work harder so that this makes her like more valuable. Is there any other associations that a Holy Grail has that we want to point out here?
The Holy Grail is supposed to guarantee immortality.
Yeah.
So if he gets her, then he's going to be immortal. And it's like his name is.
Yes, I love that. And so it's like about kind of securing your place in this world. And the Holy Grail is also imaginary. It's not real, right? I don't think anyone really believes, okay, now I'm being maybe, I don't know. I don't know enough about religion to say this, but like it's mythical. Let me put it that way. That I won't offend anyone, I don't think. It's a mythical object, right? And so it's something that you're constantly reaching for. And as far as I know, no one's found it. And so it's sort of like the green light, like you're reaching for it. And when Daisy comes into his life, he's excited about it for sure. But Nick has this comment that like, also maybe she didn't live up to everything he expected of her. To say that she needs to be this Holy Grail grants him immortality. That's so much weight for one woman to carry. That's huge expectations, right? No one can carry that much significance if they are a real person. And it says he knew that Daisy was extraordinary, but he didn't realize just how extraordinary a nice girl could be. She vanished into her rich house, into her rich, full life, leaving Gatsby nothing. He felt married to her. That was all. Okay, here's what I want you to do. With the person next to you, I want you to think about that line. He felt married to her. That was all. What does that line mean?
He's saying that he feels like attached to her, and like trying to figure out how to say it feels like he's saying because he left the war without showing like a promise, right? Where she's like, when you get back, I'll marry you. So he felt married to her even though he kind of had no idea who she really was. That makes sense. Yeah. Not physical attachment.
There are so many ways to read that line. You can try it with different emphasis. He felt married to her, that was all. That kind of suggests the way that this relationship might have been a little one-sided, right? He felt married to her, that was all. This suggests that he's like prioritizing his feelings over any kind of rationality, right? Like he felt married to her, but that was it. He wasn't actually married to her. They had no real attachment. She is free to go and do whatever she wants, right? He felt married to her, and that was all. Sam, yeah?
It almost sounds like it's less like a loving connection, more like a moving connection.
Yeah, the married part, it sounds like this is the part that's like contractual here. And the emotional part is kind of left off. Or you could say he felt married to her, and that was all. It's almost like this is she is my everything and that's it, you know? And I think the ambiguity of that line is really important because we're not quite sure how to read Gatsby's desires here. We know through Nick, and Nick knows through Gatsby what this couple felt for each other, and it's still ambiguous. But I think what Sam said at the end is so important. The fact that he's like willing to give up. If he takes the blame for this, he's gonna go to prison, right? He's gonna open up all sorts of investigations into his affairs, which are illegal. He's going to lose everything, basically, and probably including Daisy, but he is going to make this major sacrifice for her. So this whole time we're kind of talking about how Gatsby is a little bit delusional, about how he thinks money is like the most important thing. Like lots of negative stuff about Gatsby we've been throwing around and I've been directing. So why in the end is it so tragic that he doesn't have anyone come to his funeral? Like, why in the end does Nick name his book The Great Gatsby? And I don't think with any kind of irony. Like, I think, well, maybe a little irony, actually. Now I want to take that back because there's always irony. But what makes Gatsby so great, basically? Why don't you guys tell me that? What makes Gatsby a great person? Yeah.
Just like his ability to like pick a goal and just stick with it until literally death.
Yeah.
Literally.
That kind of ambition then,
Yeah.
that kind of like single-mindedness you're saying could be admirable.
Mhm.
What makes that admirable? It's okay. Yeah, Sam.
I think a huge thing that makes that admirable is because a lot of people nowadays are so scattered that like they excel. Like I get good at like kind of something, but I don't get good at
Yeah,
something. And that's
yeah.
my fault because I don't focus on one thing. While Gatsby, like he came from almost nothing, and he's like, I'm gonna be rich. He got rich, and
Yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna get Daisy. He pretty much got Daisy, and when he saw that he started losing Daisy, even then, even though his dreams started going backwards, he still went with it until
Yeah.
when dreams go backwards, a lot of people give up. He never gave up.
Yeah, he died thinking that Daisy was going to call him and that they were going to be together, right? Like he was continually going boats against the current, like the last line. He was single-mindedly rowing towards that goal. Yeah.
I also think just because of how many options there are out there, like that's why it's so hard to stick to one goal. And like Sam said, it's hard to get good at one thing is because in the society we live in, there's so many different options we can take. There's so many different classes you can take and hobbies you can pursue and stuff like that. And he showed his full dedication to one thing. That takes discipline. Like it's hard not to try to get everything.
And it takes discipline from such a young age. We saw the way he laid out his schedule, and he was like, from 5:30 to 5:45, I do exercise, right? It's a very Benjamin Franklin thing to do, where he's like, I am going to follow this schedule, and I will achieve that thing, and I will start young, and I will go all the way until, I think he's 33, until I die. At 33, this is going to be my single life goal. And Nathan was saying, like, that's how it is now. We have so many options, right? But the 1920s was definitely thinking about that. Think about the way jazz works, where you have like all of these different kind of like melodies going on at once. I don't know enough to talk about the music. Is anyone in a jazz band? Yeah? Okay, tell me why jazz sounds so bad to me.
Rephrase the question so I can get
Okay,
it
tell
all
me
right.
what makes jazz so chaotic
It's an
sounding.
acquired taste.
Well, I
So
know
it's
that
built up-
depends on who's playing jazz.
That's true. So let's talk about like a Miles Davis or a Charlie Parker. Like, why does that sound so chaotic?
So it's built up in a way, well, jazz's history, it goes back to the slave songs and it goes to the gospel and that stuff. And it's all thrown together usually orally. So people like, okay, I'll play this, you play this, and it's normally thrown together. That's how it's normal. That was how it was built. It was just, okay, here's a basic pattern, do something over it.
Okay.
So it's left up to the individual to figure out how to do it. And yeah, they'd have, say, 8 bars of 8 repeated phrases of something, but
Yeah.
then it would change, and then it would change to a different phrase. So it's all just kind of thrown together at that stage.
Okay, awesome. So it's like each person is doing their own individual thing, and each of those things might be tempting to follow. I want to follow along the path of the saxophone or the trumpet or whatever, but underneath there's this kind of through line, right? And I think Gatsby then, if we're talking about this being the jazz age, Gatsby kind of represents that through line, that single-minded goal and ambition, while all this other stuff is going on around him. Yeah.
I was just gonna expand on that because we talked about, like, especially going virtual, that's pretty much all we talked about online in Jazz Class is just like history
Composition
of
stuff.
it. And
Oh, I
stuff,
see.
like, you know, where, so that it's kind of like books where like you have to, like, you can read it and you can hear jazz, but you're only gonna find a really strong meaning if you look for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Cooper said, it started with slave songs and stuff like that, and those were like, they didn't have instruments. It was all, so it's like a conversation. It's kind of like a call and response kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really
And then to relate it back to this metaphor, Gatsby's not having a conversation, right? He's having a monologue.
Yep.
And because of that, he has a kind of consistency. So think back to that first line that we spent an entire class dissecting about how there's something gorgeous about him because he's an unbroken series of gestures. Now, maybe it is gestures. Maybe it's all surface level and we never really get to know the real Gatsby, right? But there's something amazing then about Gatsby being able to maintain that kind of consistency in a world that is careless. He uses that word many times, like careless, carefree, whatever. Daisy and Tom sort of flighting around, doing whatever they want to do. All the actresses and billionaires at his parties that kind of go from room to room, crying in one room and laughing in another. Gatsby stays consistent. And because of that, Nick talks about how he has this heightened sensitivity to the promises of life then. It's like, because he stays consistent and has this goal, he knows kind of what he's capable of. And even if he's not actually capable of the thing, like, you can't own another person. You can't be capable of owning Daisy, right? You can't make Daisy never have experiences in her life. So even if you're not capable, though, there is something amazing and like really American about the fact that he's still going to believe he's capable. Even when everything is like kind of going against him, he's like, nope, Daisy is going to call and she's going to tell me she only loved me. And he dies kind of knowing that about himself. And so even though it might not be accurate self-knowledge, it's still like very like exciting that you could build yourself into that self-made man in that way, you know? So I think like the very last line of this book just encompasses that idea so beautifully. You won't read a more famous last line than in this book. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that separates the new and old money is the fact that the old money, they haven't had to have single goals in life.
Yeah.
They're kind of just been able to do anything they want whenever they want, and people kind of happens in them. And he has a single goal and he's driving himself, and he has to actually get the stuff.
Yeah.
And so when they're like, what this guy is like, he doesn't actually know how to have fun, he doesn't know how to do anything. He has a single goal in mind, and other than that, nobody and nothing is important to him.
Yeah.
And to us, everything is either very important or we don't care about it.
Yeah, good. And so I think then that also gets into what is like horrible about Gatsby too, right? The way that he's so single-minded on himself, and it's just himself. And even when he tries to bring Daisy into it, it still feels like a selfish goal completely. It's not about his community, you know? And so there's something horrific about that, but also something exciting and like you can really make what you want of yourself, you know? And this last line, it really encompasses that. And so we beat on, and I love how it changes into this we, like us, you know, I really think it's us Americans, like us youthful Americans. So especially like your age Americans, I think. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. There is both an optimism there of continuing going for it, right? You're not going to stop beating on against the current, you know? But then there's this horrible pessimism too. You're just going to be borne back ceaselessly. You're never going to be able to stop rowing. The past is always going to be there, and yet you're going to just keep trying. And I don't know, if there is something else that represents the American dream better, I have yet to see it. Like that feels to me like the American dream. It's why the American dream is such a great topic for argument, because is it possible? Is it impossible? Is that even the right question to ask? It's an ideal, it's a dream. So maybe the point is that it's not possible, but that it's this ideal we work towards to make, everything better. So that's why I think Gatsby deserves a better funeral than what he got. Like, he deserves people celebrating his life. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna be in groups. Let me just assign the groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. Okay. So Mia, and over to Lily, Maddie over here, and then Isaac, you're with that group over there. Oh, and Sam. Yeah, perfect. And then this half of the room, you guys are together. Okay? All right, and everybody has different tasks, so get Canvas up on your computers. So for Aiden and Eli at home, you get to just choose which task you want to be in. All right, so you'll find the assignment called Gatsby Party. Okay, so Aiden, racist group over here. I'm gonna have you guys do decorations, food, and drinks. You guys in the middle group here, you guys are gonna do, actually I want you guys to do guests. You guys are gonna do guests. And then over there against the wall, you guys are gonna do invitations and obituary. Okay, so if we go into these, I'm hoping that the instructions are pretty clear, but basically you're gonna do some research. Just some Google searching. You're going to find kind of how to decorate our funeral. And someone is going to make a Google slide. You guys are going to make a Google slide presentation with our decorations, because I can't afford to buy decorations. So we're going to just put them on the slides and look at them that way. So you're going to find these decorations and make a little Google slide. You guys are also going to research some food. And someone in your group is going to make the menu for our funeral. Like, it's imaginary, but we can pretend. And then you guys are going to research alcohol, and you can divide this however you want to divide this. Someone's going to research prohibition, and you're going to decide, should we have alcohol at the funeral? I forgot who we were talking to. Food and drink is over here, right? Yeah. So you guys are going to decide if we can have alcohol at the funeral. This argument paragraph thing, let's hold off on that for a minute. Okay. Middle group, you guys are doing guests. You guys are going to take a look at these famous people from the 1920s, and you are going to do a little bit of research on these people. And then together, you're going to make a seating chart for our funeral. So you can decide, we're going to do little tables, because this will be like a funeral party. And you can decide who needs to sit next to who. Like, maybe Babe Ruth and Henry Ford would not get along, so let's keep them separate, right? And maybe you can invite friends and family too. So Daisy and Louise Brooks probably should not sit next to each other. So if you research Louise Brooks, you can see why. So you're going to do that. And then the last one is invitations and obituaries. You guys are researching the genre. What should we put in funeral invitations? What should we not put in funeral invitations? You guys will make a mock-up of them, and then someone will make the final funeral invitation. And then you'll do the same for obituaries. So except for this last bit, everyone's doing an argument paragraph that will be the same thing. Except for that last bit, you guys can collaborate on the rest of it. So you don't all have to be filling out the form. Does that make sense? Like, you can assign one person to fill out the form, or divide the work how you want to. And we're going to have this slapdash funeral. We're only going to have a half hour, because then we actually have the funeral afterwards. So I'm going to give you 20 minutes for the planning part. We'll do 10 minutes for the argument paragraph, and then the funeral. Okay. So 20 minutes to slap a great funeral together. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Are we all filling out our own prayer?
I feel like here's what you should do. Everyone fill out your own, but not everything has to be filled out on yours. You're just filling out the part that you're assigned to. Yeah, so make a copy for yourself. All of us, oh yeah, but each person is going to be. Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so you have.
Yes, you can do it, Lou.
Okay.
Get out of the corner. I can see.
If you would like some artistic supplies and invite, you can.
Are you gonna do it too? Yeah, we're doing. You wanna?
The way I wrote the instructions, I might have said that you have to do everything individually, but with time constraints, you can collaborate on everything.
Hey.
For guests, though, it makes sense. For everyone.
We'll just have to collaborate
One little bit too, funny. It was a song. It was a song. Okay. No. 1920s. Mustard. So.
Oh, I see it. I get. I'm catching it.
Did you ask why they tested it?
Yes, I immediately asked Jack. What? I immediately asked. Actually, as long as you're bringing the burrito, I'm good.
This is the 20th in New York.
We couldn't get fit.
No.
What is Hoover stew? I want a Hoover stew.
Bread that looks like it's
Cool.
I don't know. That sounds disgusting. But elegant at the same time.
I think flapjacks should be called. Wait, how many food items can we have?
Probably an infinite with how many.
He is very wealthy.
We could have more food than the average dog eats blood.
What are the sources for it?
Sources is like you just put in the links for the websites that you're using. Oh, that'd be good.
There's
Yeah.
no way we can't, like, there's no way we're not doing shrimp cocktails.
What if we make shrimp cocktails, but instead we don't put cheese on the pizza and just put the shrimp on the pizza? It's shrimp cocktail. So bread.
Where'd you get it? That's perfect. Shrimp cocktail pizza. Wait, was pizza a thing in the 1920s?
Yes.
It was a thing. What was it?
Italy did not set these things up. Very- Are we over alcohol?
So you're thinking about what Gatsby would want. What is Gatsby gonna want at his funeral?
Oh, good. Why don't we do like a combo?
We're just decoration, you guys need to have baby flowers.
Oh my gosh. Okay, how are we looking on the whole alcohol thing? We need to know what we have.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
Moonshine, that is actually a good idea.
Okay, here's.
So that way they can feel their colors too.
Blanchard's bus down,
Start over. Okay, so we got
Gin.
no, I mean, so we got shrimp cocktail, the pizza edition, and the drink edition.
Yeah.
Here, I'm gonna.
Then oyster rockefeller. Don't know what that
Okay,
is.
hold
but
on.
it sounds good.
Your choice.
There's cheese potted.
Solid or liquid state, perfect. Because Albert Einstein was alive, so we gotta add some science.
Girls trying to be like,
Where did you find that?
Okay, so you two at home, can you just put in the chat box which party activity you decided to work on?
There's a whole article on how to throw a 1920s party. This is perfect.
I hear a woman's stuff about.
Okay, wait, so we got.
And then Aiden, just so you know, I got your Gatsby stuff and your American Dream stuff. So,
Your choice,
awesome.
or solid or liquid state. Perfect, okay.
Okay, you're doing decorations, perfect.
But we need the food and the drinks separate. Deviled eggs.
And then Eli's doing guests, awesome. So if you guys in the time limit, like just keep working on it, but then in the time limit, if you don't get to everything, don't worry about it. I'm gonna give them about 15 minutes more, so you too. And then we're gonna give 10 minutes to write the argument paragraph that's at the end of every assignment. So, all right, hope that's clear.